Welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase The Barn, episode 40, a series of the Furious, the Curious show where me and Gary talk about business, life, Christianity, and more. Before we get started, show sponsor is Framcon Construction in Southern Alberta. They are your professional concrete solution in Western Canada since 1998. And they do work like telebelt, concrete placing, flat work, excavation, backfills, and foundations. And they're today's sponsor because they're hiring skilled laborers. They pay competitive wages and would help the right candidate also move to Southern Alberta if you don't live there. So
there's got to be people that are looking for work in Southern Alberta, no?
they want really good people. So if they're a really good person, then if you're interested in that, reach out to Mitch or Jordan at Framcon Construction. And their website is framcon.ca. That's FRAMCON.ca.
That brings me to an interesting thought because I've been trying to hire somebody lately too. And it's very... two things. The one is very difficult. I've talked about it before on here and it just gets me in trouble. But the other one is the hay sales. There was a young guy that works for us and I don't even know if he's quitting now, but he had talked about quitting. And we were just going to replace him. And I said to somebody, and I've stolen people from other people as well. And so that was just a conversation I had with someone about, is it okay to steal people from someone else? And I said, basically, you're always going to be stealing someone because how many good people are not working? You know what I mean? The perfect person for a job. How often are they just not going to be doing anything? Not that often, right?
And define stealing. Are they not?
I mean, it's that was a dumb word. I guess just basically taking an employee it's a small town, and in my work area or most areas, you're going to know the people where the people came from because it's such a small town. Probably different if you worked at a big company in Vancouver or something or some bigger city. But in Chilliwack, it's everybody knows everybody. So it's just
if you're paying your employee well and they're happy at your job, they're not going to quit and go somewhere else. So it's not an issue.
I think it's more complicated than that. I think sometimes it's on the employee where they just probably feel like they're not being appreciated, and whether or not they are or not whether or not it was good to move or not, they won't know till later either, right? And vice versa. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's the best thing ever when someone leaves, and sometimes it's like, oh shoot, I should have treated that person better. So I think it probably goes both ways.
But if you're looking for someone that's to work for you and you come across someone that works somewhere.
Oh, I really struggle with it because I see good people all the time, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna go poach that person.
You can say, hey, if you're interested in something else, let me know. Yeah, they're free
agent. Everybody's a free agent, like you say, and I think it's healthy. I think obviously it costs a lot to train somebody, so you really do want to have people that are relatively committed to you. But yeah, some things just last for a season, so. Yeah. So you would not consider it inappropriate to be poaching someone from another to go after someone that's working somewhere else? Would it matter how close if they were family to you, the boss, or if the boss was a friend? Would it make a difference to you in your mind?
I think if it's a competitor, direct competitor, to another construction company, and then you're trying to poach, I think that's gets dicey. It just doesn't help for relationships.
Is it wrong though?
I don't think it's wrong. I don't know.
Okay.
Is it? I mean, as Christians, we're called to be loving and use our brains. So I think there's, yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, this coming Monday is the federal election. What do you think is going to happen?
Man, I hate saying this, but I mean,
the Liberals are going to get back in.
Oh, I don't know.
That'd be such a disaster.
It's very strange to me. I don't understand. I do understand it a bit. I listen to the Looney Hour podcast often. It's I think pretty boring compared to our podcast. It's mostly about economics. Some people probably wish we would talk economics more, but it's a good group of guys. And they had John Manley on, who was cabinet minister, I think, in the Chrétien government, and he was not a Trudeau fan. He said it publicly, on their podcast. It was actually refreshing how blunt he was. But he's like, oh no, I'm going to vote for. He thinks Mark Carney is a good fit. He thinks that, and his exact words were, we are fiscal conservatives and we're progressive. We're social progressives, and we, and I think a lot of people would fall in that camp. Although there's probably a swath of people now that with gender ideology and things like that are probably not as in that camp where it's like, whoa, this has gone too far, and this has gone. We're now we're offing people that have mental illness. Because we really don't have proper health care for people, so there's some serious issues in our country. But there's still the swath of the country is they believe the media story about, Pierre Poilievre being a Trump 2.0, about being, such a populist that it's unnerving.
And he's not. He's just a liberal.
He's mostly liberal and definitely socially, he's probably pretty much a liberal. I think he probably panders to the, like even on the, he very rarely publicly talks about anything to do with gender stuff, right? Because he knows
came out last week and said that he's not going to do anything on abortion, not even going to touch
zero,
it.
nada. So that, and in that sense, a lot of people would say, hey, I think Harper's a Christian, right? I think he is. Anyways, he didn't touch it either. And people, and I'm sure many people that are in that space, that are fighting for that. And we would say, well, like, why would you not? The real issue is, and this is something that I didn't learn until I got involved with ARPA, is that it's the fact that we don't have any laws on it, that you literally, it's legal to give it, you could, and this is what's bizarre because in my world and yours, it's like people are having miscarriages and stillbirths and just really tragic things, right? And to decide to think that 2 weeks prior you could kill the baby, or you could and now your baby dies, is stillborn, and these types of things are happening, and that just the muddiness of it is just so bizarre, right? So
we're the only country of all Western nations that has no laws. Like only North Korea and China, I think, are the only two other countries
that have zero laws on it, right? So that part's, and so why would a politician not be willing to say, hey, we should have a discussion about this? And it's because politicians are weather vanes, right? And they go where the wind blows. So,
and the media is just so powerful in Canada. Like you will get crucified if he even says no late-term birth abortions or no.
Should be stopped. Yeah, they would just rip you a new one. Yeah. And it's interesting, and that's actually fascinating about Pierre Poilievre. I mean, I will be shocked if he loses. So I'm talking like Carney's going to win. I'll be shocked if people vote the Liberals back in. We have had an awful decade.
You think they're going to get back in, but you'll also be shocked?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, because I find it so unnerving. I just think even financially, if you just looked at basic math and just look at objectively, but people don't, and more of it,
and it's hard to find good information out there. Like,
it's not even about it. I just think on your own personal level, you could drive around any town in Canada or city and look at
everything's got worse.
Everything's got worse, right? So, what do you think?
Conservative minority.
Oh man, and maybe a majority. I think they might blow. I mean, this is the other thing.
The pollsters could totally be
they could be wrong. They were wrong when I think it was Christy Clark won in BC. I think I've referenced that before because I remember distinctly everybody thinking that the BC Liberals were going to get eviscerated, and they won. I also feel like, and this is true all the time, the left, we're going to put ourselves in left to right camp, but liberals, progressives, especially like woke progressives, are very vocal.
Yes.
And so they are organized. And it's because that's their religion, right? So the minute that's your religion, then you're gonna spend a lot of time beaking off about it. And so I think, there's
imagine
a lot
Christians that are trying to reach people with the gospel, whereas organized as the left is with their
or fanatic.
Wow.
I mean,
be a lot.
They also are not. They're vicious, right? And so you could say, well, they're organized and hardworking, but they are vicious and they're angry and they're mean. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think they're necessarily. They would want to come across as the loving ones. And
what do you think about gas prices going down right now? I see them they're dropping like mad.
Yeah, because oil prices are going in the toilet.
Okay, you don't think
show you all my oil stocks.
You don't think it's an election thing?
No,
that they're just trying to get votes?
No. Is that your idea or someone else's?
I just crossed my mind. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden they're doing.
I can assure you that the stock market going up and down is Trump making his family money, but I'm not as sure that the gas prices. No, the gas prices going down in Canada have nothing to do with the election. It's a global thing. Yeah. And it's very much connected to the uncertainty and people pricing in a recession.
So just this morning, I went to the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce to put on an event for Let's Talk Tariffs. And it was really interesting. So it was the head of a couple of big manufacturers and a local farmer, Creekside Dairy. They're local here.
Okay.
And it was really interesting that basically the response that everyone had was we don't know what to do. No one knows what to do because everything's always changing every day. And
then what do people do when they don't know what to do? What do they do?
Blame.
Yeah. What else do they do? Do they actually do something or no? They do nothing.
They do nothing. Well, that was talked about. What can you do? And so just check your supply chain and the different areas of where you're buying things. Talk to your suppliers, this and that. But what else came out of it? The last half of the conversation was the biggest things that need fixing. To make things better for Canadian businesses is to remove how much red tape we have. Like we talked about, hey, let's use the money if we do counter tariffs to put into manufacturing and building new facilities and this and that. And the owner of Tycrop, who was on the, or not the owner, manager, I'm not sure who he is.
Is it Gary?
No, Alan, I think.
Okay, private manager then.
Yeah, he said that like the red tape, you can't build anything here. Like it's just so brutal. It takes years and years, and like the interprovincial tariffs that are going on, and like taxes and everything else like that. And
Just try build a house or a barn in Abbotsford.
yeah,
It's
it's
just
it's insane. And so basically the narrative was like, hey, we can do a whole lot to make things better for Canadians and Canadian businesses, even though we can't do anything about the tariffs right now. And that's just like very practical things that aren't happening. And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, the one guy said from Tie Crop, he goes, last fall, Canada put a 25% tariff on overseas aluminum. And so like, well, practically like what would be good for him is if Canada removed that tariff, you know, like to your cost of goods.
get cheaper product.
Yeah. And things like that. And
Was there somebody that was giving a general rundown on tariffs and how they affect economics, or not really? Was it more
yeah,
just
they're very inflationary and that
they're
they're,
inflationary?
yeah.
Do you think they're inflationary long term, or do you think they're deflationary?
I don't know enough.
I think they're deflationary.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just think that if the people that I talk to and in general in business are somehow affected by it for the most part to some degree,
Yeah.
and always it brings uncertainty, and uncertainty is not good for business. Like you're not moving forward, and you're not doing projects, and you're not building. So, anyways, it's definitely very debated. So I don't necessarily, I don't have the. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear Maxime Bernier's. He came here the other day as well and interviewed him and talking about tariffs and he would put no counter tariffs on. He says that's just making things worse for Canadians and more expensive. And he would try to make figure out a way to make a new deal as quick as possible. So
What would a new deal look like? Like
he would put supply
renegotiate
management.
everything.
Yeah,
he would shoot the sacred cow for sure.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he also asked them about like he would put chicken, like all the controlled maple syrup, and there was one other one I think that he goes like, no, those are
The fish.
Yeah,
Anyone can grab the fish.
Yeah, and so yeah, we talked about that and a whole bunch of other things. I mean, it all have come out already when this comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really interesting chat.
Was it a good interview?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I could have done a lot better job.
Okay.
So I thought I had an hour, and I actually had longer.
Oh,
And if I would have known that, I would have had a different style. So I really had like my questions ready.
did you get to the hour and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got to wrap up? And he's like, oh, I got more time in, or how did that
No,
go?
we went downstairs and like his bride wasn't here yet.
Back up to the studio.
And so we just chatted outside for a long
Okay.
time. And that's when I tried
Okay.
to video call you. Because I was like, hey, I got a farmer buddy that really is anti, like really against your.
I mean,
Anyway, so he was going to FaceTime you.
that's why I didn't want to be on there. I didn't want to be in. I thought maybe it was going to be in the public record, right? Because I could get
No.
get in trouble from my fellow dairy
just
farmers
one-on-one.
for
We
being
can
too
still
much
do
of a
it.
free market guy.
He gave me a
Okay, he's
cell.
pretty easy going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
I do think, because I see like Martin Peltier and all kinds of guys that I followed on Twitter that are very smart guys and obviously smarter than I am, but they're pro-business and they're very anti-supply management. And they're definitely right on some accounts. And, typically when you hear two sides of an argument, the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And I think that they are not acknowledging that it's somewhere in between. Just as most dairy farmers don't realize that, hey, obviously it would be healthy to the consumer to some degree to not have supply management, right? It's just that, like I said to you, it's the fact that milk is so perishable that I do think it's in a different camp than, like they did away, the Harper government did away with the grain, the grain elevator, whatever the co-op was that was kind of dealing with the grain. And because there again, it was just it was just a protected thing where it just added costs, right? And I think milk falls in a little bit of a different camp, but
Yeah, it was a good interview. But yeah, I would have asked more follow-up questions because I would ask a question, he would go on a little rant for like 2 minutes.
and then you right away move to
And
kind
I
of
usually
the next
move to the next question. And
Okay.
at the end, I started asking a little bit more questions. So I felt like I could have done a better job that way. But I mean,
Okay.
we'll see what people say. But
Okay. Do you realize that he went straight from your interview to an interview with Tucker Carlson?
I found that out today.
But he's like, this is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. Like I have no idea how many more views it'll get at all, just because it's Maxime Bernier. I have no idea. I'll find out. My one with Eric Trump got like 188 views only. So, mind you, that was like 4 years
Quite
ago
a few
now.
years ago, yeah.
So,
Did you get into Maxime Bernier's exodus from the party he was in?
yeah, that's how I started.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I started. So I'm like it's basically explain from the beginning why you left.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was good.
Okay.
So,
And I guess I'll get to listen to it. And this is just my own viewpoint, but I feel like, he is to some degree to the Conservatives what the NDP are to the Liberals now. Like there's so many similarities. There's so many people that could potentially be in both camps, right?
I don't know. He is pretty starkly different from that. After that podcast, I was like, okay, you're significantly different than the Conservatives. Like, there's
Yeah, but there'd be people in the Conservative Party MPs that would very much feel comfortable with most of what Maxime Bernier says, eh?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know-
they're
I
just
don't-
in the Conservative Party for
Yeah,
the sake
yeah.
of getting elected. Like, that's what I'm trying to
There's-
say.
yeah, that way,
People
yeah.
are so self-serving, and because of and this is where people would argue that we should have proportional representation. I disagree with it, but
Yeah, I mean, we
I
talked
like
about
the
that
first-
vote splitting as well,
Okay.
and things like that. And so, yeah, he had good answers.
okay.
It made me think.
Did he bring up Trudeau not switching our electoral system, which he promised in 2015 he would do?
No, I should.
Okay.
Didn't bring that up. But.
Okay, because to me, it's like somebody like him has the most to lose from that not getting changed, right? Like now he has no
right.
voice, basically.
That's right.
How come he's not allowed in the debates? Because he doesn't have any MPs?
So they in 2021 they made a rule that you had to have 4% of the vote to do it.
Yeah,
And so then he got 5% of the vote last time.
yeah.
And now he's still not allowed because the election commission, whatever, the debate commission, whatever, has some other rule now why he can't get in. And he says it's because the Conservatives don't want him on there.
No, they would not. No. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, looking forward to listening to it.
In other news, we got called out publicly last week for a clip on my podcast with Maxime.
You got called out?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a guy that
He'll remain unnamed.
unnamed, yeah, on LinkedIn. He said, "Dear Kyle, as long as you're furiously curious, you obviously have not found the truth. I would love to talk to you about this privately." So, and this is a leader at a local church, or actually was up until recently, I think. I thought he still was. And so I said, hey, would love to have you on the podcast to discuss if you have the truth, why hide it, right? I definitely could be wrong, have been wrong a lot before. So looking forward to what you have to say. I'll shoot you an email. And he says, thanks, Kyle. My aim is not popularity or fame. Let's keep this private for the time being until we are on the same line, the Lord willing. There is enough division and confusion out there. So let's go for a coffee and look forward to your email. So I said, do you think my aim is popularity and fame? My aim is to share the truth. And if you believe you have it and believe I don't, why would you keep that private? It would just be an open conversation, an opportunity to share your view. And so I emailed him, and he got a big long email from him on all the.
You just need to meet up.
Yeah,
I'm
so we
assuming you're
will.
meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'm getting that, getting called out that way and publicly because
Which makes sense.
definitely wouldn't have been my approach. Like if I really disagree with somebody, especially someone I know, I'm not going to like go on a public platform like LinkedIn or Facebook and say, hey, you don't have the truth. What are you doing?
Oh,
Like,
I see.
you
I
know,
see what
I'm
you're
going to
saying.
send them a private message and say,
Yeah.
let's go for coffee and ask questions and try to understand first. So
I guess the only argument against that would be in the situation where you're like us and you're on a podcast. It's like, hey, there's a comment section for a reason. Like, don't have the comments turned on if you don't want to comment. Like, do you only want positive feedback, or you want to take a
no,
bit of
I don't
critique
mind
and-
negative feedback.
Yeah,
And I respond to it and I'll read it and stuff like that. And but if you want to like
I think it's healthy.
come on the podcast, come talk about it publicly.
No, I
if you
think
have
it's
the truth.
healthy.
What is?
I just think the dialogue, like when people can like respectfully disagree
Yeah, that's
in a
good.
comment section, is so refreshing. Where
Yes.
it's just like most of the time it so quickly turns to name calling and derogatory talk.
Yeah.
Where people can like, and you see it all the time, where people disagree so strongly, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, these people are actually keeping it somewhat civilized. This is
Yeah,
impressive.
because it does have some other ones. We were talking about gluttony, I think, a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and something about the fact that you can be fat or obese and not be a glutton.
Oh, I read those comments. I've never went on our YouTube channel, but the other night Marie was on there showing me how few views I have, and it was like I've gotten the comments. And I mean, there's lots of positive comments, lots of.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody has an opinion, right? So
that's right. And that's good. That's okay.
Yeah.
Debate's good. Okay, Gentle and Lily, go book report, and then we'll do some listener questions.
yeah. You know what my wife suggested we do now? I mean, every week she's like, first of all, how many chapters are in this book? She asked the other day. I said a lot. They're very short. She said, how about you just do a book report after you've read the whole book one time?
That's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
I found this one another challenging chapter.
Do other people give you commentary on the book report, or is it
Yeah,
just
I
me
do.
and my wife?
I've had a few decent comments that people like it. Not
No
only
negative.
negative comments is from Marie.
Okay, fair enough.
So Okay, so yeah, we're going through that.
And me a little bit, because I'm very easily influenced by my wife. I hold
good.
my wife's opinion in high regard.
That's good. So this is a book, Gentle and Lowly from Dayton Ortland, The Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers. Me and Gary are reading one chapter a week and just chatting about it. So this is chapter 11.
When you grow up in a very dogmatic, when you grow up, when you grow up the way that I feel, or the way I interpreted what I was taught, this has been a very good book for me to read.
Yeah.
And
Can
it's
you elaborate?
recommended now by people that are in where I come from. So it's definitely, it's obviously just even the way people are taught and the way people view God is probably.
Why is it good for you?
Well, this chapter, I'll let you do the chapter. We'll get to it at the end. I'll let you do your.
Okay. The emotional life of Christ. And the verse on the top is John 11, verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. So the chapter talks about how Jesus was fully man and still is. And my first reaction to that was, what do you mean still is? But yeah, he ascended into heaven, and he is still has his human nature and his divine nature, and that he all the attributes of his human nature of like having emotions were perfect. So he had perfect anger and perfect compassion, perfect care, and so there's a little description of that as an example. So I'll read that. And he goes, I remember, this is the author, I remember walking the streets of Bangalore, India a few years ago, and I had just finished preaching at a church in a town and was waiting for my ride to arrive. Immediately outside the church grounds was an older man, apparently homeless, sitting in a large cardboard box. His clothes were tattered and dirty. He was missing several teeth and was immediately most distressing with his hands. Most of his fingers were partially eaten away, and it was clear that they hadn't been damaged by an injury, but had simply been eaten away over time. He was a leper. What happened in my heart in that moment? My fallen, prone to wander heart? Compassion. A little, anyway, but it was tepid compassion. The fall had ruined me, all of me, including my emotions. The fall being, our fallen Adam, and that we're sinful. Fallen emotions not only sinfully overreact, but they also sinfully underreact. Why was my heart so cool towards this miserable gentleman? Because I am a sinner. What does this mean for a sinless man with fully functioning emotions to lay eyes on that leper? Sin restrained my emotions of compassion. What would unrestrained emotions of compassion be like? That is what Jesus felt. Perfect, unfiltered compassion. What must they have been rising up within him? What would perfect pity look like, mediated not through a prophetic oracle as in the Old Testament, but an actual real human? And so then it goes on in the chapter to talk about how Jesus is still that same way today, and that he has real compassion on us when we're wronged and in our suffering and for our sin. I think just again, which is the purpose of this whole book, is the heart of Christ, just that we can go to him.
I find the blunt talk on God's emotions quite interesting, and just the array of emotions, and even like on the story of Martha, which is where he with Lazarus dying, and I was reading it like in the NLT, just like how angry Jesus is. I don't even totally understand why, to be honest, but there's probably great sermons on it from people smarter than me. But I just found that kind of interesting. And then at the very end of the chapter, him talking about, are you angry today? Let us not be too quick to assume our anger is sinful after all the Bible positively orders us to be angry when occasion calls for it. Psalm 4, verse 4, Ephesians 4, verse 24. And I guess the part that I find fascinating is I've always believed it's pretty much wrong to be angry. I know for sure for myself, I don't do anger well. And I don't know if it's because I used to be an alcoholic or, had a drinking problem, or I just tend to quickly sin when I'm angry.
Yeah.
I don't ever allow myself to stay bitter and angry too long. And I feel like forgiveness is important. And so I don't know, I haven't done enough study on that to kind of, I'm not going to debate the Mr. Ortland here, but I just feel like my experience with men, at least that I deal with, most are not qualified to be doing the anger thing. They're usually angry for the wrong things. They're petty. They're not forgiving. And so, there are things that obviously do anger God and all kinds of sin. And we're probably.
That was interesting how he even referred to Jesus making the whip in the temple before he chased out the merchants or whatever. And he describes, can you imagine Jesus making the
getting
whip,
it ready,
getting it ready? And I'm like,
and not sinning.
whoa, I never even
Yeah,
thought of that.
I
Like
know.
that's just like he was really human. Like it is really bizarre. But yeah, and I think it's a comforting thing as well. So, but you said in general this book has been really good for you. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, I just feel like I love I just feel like it's a deep study into like into the heart of Jesus, and I just feel like those types of things have never been that prevalent for me. I haven't done. I often read the Bible. I just read it through. Hey, what is this trying to tell me? What am I supposed to be doing different? What am I supposed to be convicted about? Right? And those are probably all true.
Yeah.
Those thoughts. But way more lately, I've been convicted just about my relationship with God or the lack thereof at times, and why don't I have that? And and I think, yeah, I just feel like it's just been really healthy, and it's a very like it's not like as if this guy's not God. The book may not be perfectly accurate,
Yeah.
but obviously it's backed up with a lot of scripture, and there's a lot of things there that I feel like are just have been super helpful for me. In
Yeah. But I find it even interesting in today's chapter how often he quotes some of the reformers that were very much respected even for me growing up and still now, like John Calvin and Jonathan Edwards and those guys, and that always gives me a little bit more puts a little more credence to it.
I think it's super. I think it's healthy for
Even though
for us to read it in that
Heidelberg
way.
Catechism even was quoted in today's chapter.
Yeah. There again, this chapter I probably struggle with the most in the sense of I feel like anger is, I almost equate it with sinfulness, which is obviously not true. So
Well, in that
was
book,
pretty challenging
capital
for me.
capital vices,
Vice,
whatever,
yeah.
or like seven deadly sins, it says in there as well that anger in itself is not sinful.
It's not sinful.
It's but it can get out of hand.
I'd be curious to know if other people have the same thought as me, or if I'm the only person that views that way.
I mean, it's because it's so complicated. It's because we're sinful, and so easily your anger is, just selfish or just about us or whatever.
Like if I'm angry with my children, it's never righteous anger. It's not like oh wow, like
When's the last time you were angry at your kids?
this morning probably, last night for sure. I was cleaning poop off the wall or the toilet seat or something.
Gross.
Ugh.
Okay, listener question. I quote, episode 38 of the Briefcase in the Barn was awesome episode. I love that it wasn't rushed. So that was the one where we were a little bit longer.
That was the 1 hour one.
Yeah. So maybe we should go 1 hour.
We can go any amount of time. That's the point.
Okay, so before we started recording today, I was telling
having a
Gary that
big
he
debate.
always gives me crap that we're like, are we overtime? People
It's
don't
only
want
because
it
I got to
long.
go to the bathroom, because I drink 8 cups of coffee and 4 liters of water a day. So.
Okay. I'll keep going with this question.
Sorry.
I would also love for you guys to circle back to your grades 6 to 12 years old. I'm parenting this age and it's been a big struggle. What can I be doing to help my guys realize their worth while still being humble and respectful? My son in middle school punched someone for bugging him about his academic level. So I guess 2 questions there. Circling back to grades 6 to 12 years old. Yeah, those were probably some of my worst.
My advice is to beat him like a piñata at a fiesta.
I'm going to clip that. That's going to be a real ram.
No reels.
Yeah, my 6 to 12 years old was just brutal. Like I snapped at like 7 or 8 years old. Like my grades
Just pretty young.
tanked
It's
overnight.
pretty young to snap.
And like there was more holes in my wall in my room than there was drywall.
What's the actual question?
Circle back to you guys at 6 to 12 years old. Like what was it like? And how do you help guys realize their worth while still being humble and respectful?
Help the kids realize their worth?
Yeah. So I think it's time with dad, especially for boys, like one-on-one time and conversation and love, and that their value isn't just based on their behavior or their output, but that their value as a kid. I think that's super important. And then also seeing that their parents themselves are have a respect for themselves and that they value themselves in a healthy way. Because if you're really anxious as a parent, you're going to have anxious kids. If you're like always berating yourself and saying I'm a piece of crap, you're going to get your kids to do that, right? So much of this behavior that we want our kids has to be modeled and not just taught.
Also, it's just hard growing up today. So I just feel like, if I look at back when my parents I don't know if they remember it clearer or less clear than me, but I was horrible from grade 12 years old all the way till after I graduated from high school. And I feel like I often tell people, like if I talk to parents that have kids in the teenage stage or even young adult stage that are struggling, and maybe like I've been at court before for other stuff in the last 10 years, and I always try to encourage moms because yeah, I mean, I guess it's a miracle that I turned out half decent, but like it's also like my parents spent a lot of time praying. They really did. They were praying parents, and my parents would probably be the first to tell you that they struggled at times parenting and didn't do things right. But yeah, God's gracious, right? And so
Pray with
it's
your
that
kids. Pray with
balance.
your kids.
It's that balance of parenting as best you can and being willing to admit you're wrong. And like I say, we really struggle in our house at times, but we always say we do things wrong. We always say sorry.
Confess it.
We confess. We just be like, and I think in general in our Christian walk, we do not practice what we preach. Like we do not confess our sins to one another. Some women and some men do, but like how many women the minute they have an awful experience at home are calling another mom friend and saying, I did this. This was like, that would be confessing your sins to one another, right?
With me.
Right? Yeah. And just, and it's not a comparison game. And some people just are going to struggle with anger more. And some people are going to struggle with,
And it's
pride
hard.
more or whatever, right?
And it's hard. Like I had it last week or something. I had to call some guys about, and it's super humbling, and it's hard. But it's how else do you do it? Like we can't do this Christian walk alone. We can't do life alone. We can try, but it's terribly lonely. But I would also say, like my younger years were terrible. Like I was in this, talked about psych ward and things like that already, previous episodes. But like, there is hope. Like things can change.
And I just think there again, I'm not that connected to teenagers now as much as I probably should be. We have our kids in our house, and then we have a lot of young adults that are around.
Yeah. No phones.
No phones for your kids. Yeah, 0 phones. Even that though, like how much computer time is the right amount, and every family does it different. And some are allowing their kids to be on iPads like crazy. In our house, we don't have an iPad in our house. Yeah. So like and there again, don't judge people that do. Just whatever.
I do remember hardcore judging one couple. Before I had kids, I was flying to
You
Ontario.
were a really good parent at that time.
Yeah, flying to Ontario, and I've seen some parents like have their kid have an iPad as like 2 years old and flipping through the iPad on the plane, and I'm judging them. I'm like, talk to Cole, we're never going to do that, whatever. And
out comes the iPad.
well, I mean, if we're flying, like I got the
Anything, just keep the kid happy.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to listen to your kid screaming. We don't care if you destroy your child's character with a device on their flight.
Well, you can
I'm tongue in cheek. Yeah, I don't know too. Like our kids are just getting into that stage, our oldest, and I always feel, and I'm there again. I talked to a dad the other day that has boys that are struggling in the teenage years and they're rowdies, and some of it's genetic makeup, and some of it's probably maybe it is being easygoing. Some of it's just human nature, and it's like, what's that balance? We were talking about it, he and I. It's like, what's that balance of stiff arming your kid or just making him do the right thing? Because as your children are in that age at 12, 13, especially those younger years, you can still probably implement a lot of just through brute force, through like threatening, through taking privileges away. And it's so challenging because it's like, how do you still maintain relationship while still, your kids are called to obey you. Yeah. And like, there's the verse that I would have quoted to my dad where it's like, oh, don't provoke your children to wrath. And, a lot of dads and moms are provoking their children to wrath by just being petty about, like, there's no silver bullet. Every child is different. And I think that's the beauty. That's what should keep us probably really humble if we do have children. It's just that realization that we can't do it on our own. We're not meant to do it on our own. We're not meant to just, and if we were amazing parents and our children turned out exceptionally well, should we be like proud that we did a good job? Of course not. So I don't know. No. I think people have a,
on the flip side, I also think that we can put a lot of effort into different things that we want, right? So if we want to really grow a business, we'll like go to school, we'll go to nursing school, we'll wake up at like 4 a.m. to study for tests and this and that. Like we'll put tons of effort in to make things happen. And so if it's really important for you to become a good parent, like there's things you can do, there's courses you can take, there's books you can read. There's some like really awesome books like that. Wild at Heart, The Heart of a Man. It's like I really recommend guys read that. There's other books out there.
The other thing, just you're making me think of it, and it's back to what you said earlier. I think it's probably just mostly time spent, which is hard for a lot of us because we have so many things as adults that we feel we're responsible for doing. And I feel like somebody said to me, challenged me one time, like just do things that your kids want to do. And so for me, that means asking my son about Minecraft. I do not care about Minecraft. I could be more derogatory about it, but I just do not care. I would prefer he do other things, but he loves it. I don't think it's a bad thing, or it doesn't seem to be negative in any way. It's a
Well,
fun
that's what
game that
showing
he likes
care is,
playing.
right? If you're going to build a relationship with someone that you don't know at all, that you meet, whatever.
You're not just going to go grab them and take them into the thing that you
We're
like
only talking
doing.
about stuff I'm interested in. No, you're
not gonna
asking
go
about
off.
what they're doing, what they're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So now, having said that, and that's the cool thing with kids, especially at my son's age, there's a lot of things that we can find that are common ground that we both enjoy doing, and that's where I need to lead him into, right?
Yeah.
And if that means it's a dirt bike, or if that means something less, more affordable, like a golf thing or a whatever, just something fun outside. Our kids just love spending time with us outside. I took the kids Sunday afternoon. We went like the community trail there on the hike, and like there was some whining, but it was mostly really good. The kids had a fun time, right? You know, have a little fun snack after.
Yeah. Be okay with the whining.
Yeah, I can't stand it. Puts me in the nut house, man. I
your
said to
phone at
Marie,
home.
it's like, and every time when I hike with my kids, especially if I'm by myself, Marie, I just let her stay home because she just needed a bit of a break or whatever. And, so I took them by myself, and it's really funny seeing people's face, right? Because they pass the first kid by themselves, and then the 10-year-old, and then the 8-year-old, and then the 2 5-year-olds, and then the 4-year-old. I got a 2-year-old on my back. And it's just carnage, right? It's pretty funny. Mostly yelling at them not to step in dog crap.
Okay, another comment. Moving on to the last comment here.
Yeah.
Comment on the Safe Families podcast with Jen Gamanshi, episode 27. I quote, "She mentioned that part of the issue is that there's no strong father figures in families. I think she's partly right, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room, which is that there's an entitled feminist stronghold in women, and that men do not like it.
No
Men-
pun intended.
Men can be strong for any woman. But the minute the woman pushes back and shows to be more of a leader and stronger than the man, and a lot of men will push back, hence why a lot of men also step out of their relationships, because women are far too headstrong, disrespectful, and willing to lead when they should be submitting and allowing for the man to lead." That's a heavy comment. A lot to be said there. I think
It's a two-way street.
it's a two-way street. There's definitely men abdicating on their responsibilities, and there's definitely women that are abdicating on their responsibilities and not being.
My belief is it's mostly men abdicating.
Well, it starts with the man, right? We're called to lead. God made a.
If you look in
so-
churches, like in evangelical church, or I would just say in churches that I've been a part of the last 20 years, often it's just the fact that women are just doing good things and they're working hard and they're like, so like you could say, well, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think there's. It's not like women are less sinful, or like less, doing their thing. But there is like
a lot of time. What I've seen is they care more about their kids' faith and they care more about
but if
spirituality in the
if they're
home.
also being bitter and angry and like
Lots are not.
are gossiping. I mean, there's lots of men that aren't either. I'm just saying that it's everyone has to be responsible for themselves. And Gary just completely gone again because his phone. His phone
my
just
wife,
vibrated.
right? I had to have my phone on. She said, "Do not turn your phone off during the podcast."
Good thing we didn't have the lockbox today.
I'd be interesting to hear a woman's perspective on that.
Yes. Well, I did say in the last episode that Nicole was going to.
Was it a woman's question, or was it a guy?
I can't remember. It was.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up.
Be curious to know.
That's written by a guy. That sounds like a guy. That's definitely a guy. How that's written?
Not necessarily.
I guess see. I said Nicole
Sounds
was
like
going
an
to.
angry man too.
I said Nicole was going to be on today. It didn't work out because partially I wanted to talk about some of the political stuff since this is going to be the last one before the election. So,
Any other thoughts on the election?
no,
The world will carry on, irregardless of who's voted in.
God's in control.
God's in control. Amen.
Psalm 2 says God laughs at the rulers of the world.
Yeah.
Fear not. It's going to be okay regardless. So.
Yeah, I do think Christians.
We could use some more persecution. John Piper has a really.
It's coming, man. I was reading Matthew 23:24 today.
Okay.
It was heavy, man. I felt like I had to stop. The kids were looking at me. They were terrified. They were just sitting there looking at me like, my kids are like very
what is
easily
Matthew
scared.
24, 25?
Well, 23 is, I think, about that was convicting for me. It was about the like church leaders and like the way to be, and the Pharisees, and Jesus ripping the Pharisees, which is interesting because I mean, I would have read that as a kid too, and I never viewed it. I guess
That's the only people Jesus ripped was the Pharisees. They're super religious people.
Yeah. And then 24, I think, is about the end times, right? He's with his disciples, I think, on the Mount of Olives, and they're asking about when is this all going to come to pass? And then he talks about all the horrors that are coming and the war and the problems in there again. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of horror out there already. Anyway, I was saying before you interrupted me.
Sorry.
Gary's mom. What's your mom's name?
Gerda.
Gerda, you need to have another talk with your son.
She definitely would want to have a talk with me too. Need to get over there.
So he said, Piper was saying, this is a sermon from like 15 years ago, but that in the last 300 years has been the anomaly in Christian history, in the fact that America has been a Christian nation and we've had peace and prosperity as Christians. But if you look around the world today, most people as Christians don't have that. They're under persecution in the whole world. And definitely in the last 2,000 years, Christians have not been the popular people in their countries. Like they haven't had it. So it's actually really what's happening in America, or like the Western world where Christianity was accepted. That is the weird thing. We're probably going back to normal where there is persecution. And it's going to be good for the church, and it's okay because we're going to go home soon. Like this world is ending, and so.
Good spot to end it, Kyle. I could talk about economics. I could talk about the housing market. Tough times. Price your house right.
Cross your heart.
In Chilliwack, price your house right. Tough to sell stuff right now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. Like, comment, share, subscribe, leave a comment, even an angry one if you want. I love the feedback, or send in questions. You can do it anonymously as well on my website, furiouslycurious.co. Yeah, see you next week.